It's 1970. British racer James Hunt arrives at a Formula 3 event with his girlfriend, hoping to make an impression and work his way up to Formula 1. He introduces her to his team and their flamboyant owner, Lord Hesketh, then proudly shows her the car. Moments later, James throws up, but that's just part of the ritual. It happens before every race. He focuses, takes a swig of champagne, a drag from his cigarette, and climbs into the cockpit. As the engines roar to life, he locks eyes with a newcomer, a focused Austrian named Niki Lauda. The race begins. The deafening scream of engines fills the air. James's girlfriend plugs her ears to escape the chaos. On the track, Hunt and Lauda quickly rise to the front, battling for the lead. On the final lap, Lauda pulls off a smart maneuver and gains the advantage, but James answers with a risky move of his own, too risky. Their cars collide. Lauda's race ends then and there. James crosses the finish line in first place. Victory is his. But Lauda is furious, accusing him of reckless driving. James and his team laugh it off, mocking the Austrian and calling him a coward. Niki Lauda came from a family of businessmen and politicians. His decision to pursue racing deeply disappointed his father. Cut off from family support, Lauda took out a bank loan and struck a deal with a struggling Formula 1 team. Meanwhile, James Hunt, now with a new girlfriend, is crowned Britain's Driver of the Year. After his cocky victory speech, the playboy racer gets a dose of reality. His rival, the one he just mocked, has already made it to Formula 1. Niki Lauda didn't win the race, but he bought his seat for 2 million shillings. He's now in the big leagues. Lauda arrives in France for pre-season training. He meets his new teammate, Clay Regazzoni, and the mechanics of the team. His assigned car weighs 600 kilograms, with 190 of that being just the engine. Unimpressed, Lauda demands changes. The car is too heavy. It needs to be faster. He surprises the crew with his deep technical knowledge, issuing precise instructions on what needs to be fixed and how. When the modifications are complete, Regazzoni is asked to take it for a test lap. He clocks in 2.5 seconds faster than his usual time in Lauda's car. That seals the deal. In exchange for his engineering insight and a promise of continued financial backing, Lauda secures a proper seat on the team, a 3-year contract with equal status to their star driver, Regazzoni. Later, Niki prepares for a date with the team's manager, but Clay pulls him aside with a warning she used to date a real stallion, and his name was James Hunt. Meanwhile, across Europe, James Hunt gets the news he too has officially entered the world of Formula 1. During a qualifying session, a driver suffers a fatal crash. The impact rips his head clean off. In this world, danger is ever present. Hunt is shaken by the recent tragedy on the track, but Lauda remains cold and analytical. To him, it was a simple matter. A driver made a mistake and paid the price. In the garage, James mentally rehearses one of the upcoming circuit, visualizing every turn. That's when Susie Miller walks in, a glamorous model and the girlfriend of Lord Hesketh. A quick flirt sparks something more. Soon, the tabloids are buzzing. The wild playboy has married a rising star. But the celebration doesn't last long. James learns that Niki Lauda has just signed with Ferrari. The legendary team chose the Austrian thanks to Regazzoni, who vouched for Lauda's technical genius. At a press conference, Enzo Ferrari proudly unveils his new driver. Behind the scenes, Lauda confides in Clay. If he had any other talent, he wouldn't be risking his life like this. But this is the only thing he's good at. Clay invites Niki to meet his friends, but Lauda's blunt, abrasive personality gets him left at the door. As he stands outside, a woman offers him a ride back to town. She's annoyed and unimpressed, but once in the car, Lauda starts diagnosing mechanical issues just by sound-warped brakes. She laughs it off at first. The car was just serviced, but moments later, it breaks down exactly as he predicted. As she steps out to wave down a ride, a group of Italian men screech to a halt, not because she's waving, but because they recognize Lauda. The woman, Marlene, is stunned. He's nothing like a Formula 1 driver. Not tall, not sexy, doesn't have the hair, and he drives like an old man. Lauda tells her, "There's no point in risking your life without a clear reason to win." On impulse, she urges him to prove what he's really capable of. He accepts the challenge, and somewhere between the curves of the road and the roar of the engine, he wins her over. We jump to the 1975 US Grand Prix. Once again, it's Lauda versus Hunt. The two titans face off, their women watching every turn, every second from the sidelines. As the race nears its end, Hunt's car begins to fail. Mechanical trouble forces him to slow down, and Lauda surges ahead. grid. He wins the race, and with it, the world championship. Back in the paddock, Hunt chalks up the victory to Ferrari. Lauda didn't win because he was better, he just drove the best machine on the grid. In a quiet moment between races, their contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Hunt is a crowd favorite, loud, charismatic, always in the middle of a party. He thrives in chaos, drinks like a rock star, and lives like one too. Lauda is the exact opposite, cold, calculated, isolated by choice. He sticks to strict routines, keeps people at arm's length, and refers to most of his team as idiots. Lord Hesketh can no longer finance the team. Formula One has drained his fortune. The operation collapses, leaving Hunt without a car, without a future. No team wants to sign him. Sponsors fear his reckless image. As the offers dry up, Hunt spirals. Booze replaces focus. Fights with Susie become more frequent. His marriage cracks under the weight of frustration and ego. But then a lifeline. McLaren is considering a new driver. James is one of two options: the unpredictable risk or the reliable veteran Jackie X. Slower but safer. Hunt knows it's now or never. He begs for a chance, promises discipline, obedience, and most importantly, that he'll beat Niki Lauda. That gets their attention. He gets the seat. The new season opens under the sweltering sun of Brazil. Lauda dominates. Hunt's engine fails before he can finish. In South Africa, Lauda wins again. Hunt comes second, but then comes Spain. This time, James crosses the finish line first finally, but Lauda moves quickly behind the scenes. A technical complaint leads to Hunt's disqualification. The McLaren was 1.5 centimeters too wide. In Monaco, disaster strikes again. Hunt's car smokes, overheats, and becomes nearly undrivable after modifications. While Lauda collects points, Hunt sits helpless, watching his season collapse. Frustration boils over. He calls Lauda a rat. Lauda hits where it hurt. Rumors about Susie's affair are already circulating, and Niki makes sure James knows it. The tabloids had it first. Everyone knows except James. Backstage, James confronts Susie. They speak in hushed tones, but the pain cuts deep. Outside, he puts on a brave face, brushing off questions with charm and deflection. But inside, something cracks. And then, at the next race, Hunt returns sharper, colder, more focused. The car has been fixed, and so is he. This time, he wins. In England, on his home turf, James does it again, another victory. The crowd erupts. After a long investigation, Hunt's disqualification in Spain is overturned. The lost points are restored. In just a few months, the washed-up party boy had become the most talked-about driver in the world. But no matter how loud the headlines screamed his name, he was still far behind Lauda in the standings. Meanwhile, Niki's life was changing too. Between races, he quietly married Marlene. No big ceremony, no celebration. During their honeymoon, Niki confessed something rare. Happiness scared him. It made him vulnerable, because now he had something to lose. The qualifying round at the German Grand Prix was marked by a serious crash. Some clueless fan comes up to Niki asking for an autograph with the date, just in case it's his final race. This place is ancient, deadly. They call it the graveyard for a reason. On top of that, the track is getting hammered by non-stop rain. Lauda calls a meeting with the drivers. He wants the race cancelled. It's just too dangerous. But the others, led by Hunt, accuse him of playing mind games. If the race gets cancelled, no one can catch up to him in points. So most of them vote against him. The race would go on. By race day, the rain had eased, but the danger remained. Almost everyone opted for wet weather tires, including Hunt and Lauda. The green flag dropped. Lauda surged into the lead, but by the end of the first lap, a bold McLaren driver on slick tires overtook both him and Hunt. Parts of the track had already begun to dry. The gamble was paying off. One by one, drivers pitted to switch to dry tires, but Lauda's stop went badly. A delay cost him valuable seconds. Hunt flew ahead. Lauda chase, then disaster. As Lauda pushed to close the gap, something failed. The rear suspension snapped. His Ferrari spun off the track, slammed into the barrier, and exploded into flames. Seconds later, another car struck him at full speed. Finally, other drivers reached him, clawing through the wreckage, dragging him out, but the damage was done. Niki Lauda had been pulled from hell. Lauda suffered massive burns to his face and head. His lungs were scorched from the superheated air he inhaled in the fire, while Hunt Hunt technically won the German Grand Prix, there was no celebration in his eyes. The victory meant little, not with Niki clinging to life. Doctors weren't sure he'd make it through the night, but when he woke from his coma, the first thing he did was tell the priest to get the hell out. Marlene came to visit, but the man in the hospital bed was barely recognizable. Each day brought searing pain, especially when the bandages were changed. One afternoon, as Niki writhed in agony, the TV in his room played the Austrian Grand Prix. By the 5th week, James Hunt won again, this time in the Netherlands. When fluid filled his lungs again, the doctors hesitated to repeat the painful suction procedure. Niki demanded they do it anyway, right there, right now. There wasn't time to wait. The season was slipping away. Soon, he was trying to force a helmet onto his healing skull. Skin tore. Pain exploded. Just 42 days after the crash, Niki Lauda walked back into the paddock, ready to race at the Italian Grand Prix. Even Hunt was stunned when he saw him. The face beneath the helmet was scarred and raw, but the fire in his eyes hadn't dimmed. Lauda looked at him and said, "This is your fault, but also your doing. You pushed me to come back." Their rivalry had nearly killed him, and now it was the only thing keeping him alive. At the press conference, Lauda tried to ease the tension with a joke. They had grafted skin from his thigh onto his forehead. "Now I won't sweat anymore," he smirked, which is good for a driver. Then, a reporter crossed the line. He asked if Niki feared his wife would leave him now that he looked the way he did. That ended the conference. Later, Hunt found the journalist in the restroom and beat him bloody. Back on the track, Lauda was in hell. Every bump of the road shot agony through his skull. His vision blurred. At the start, he fell behind. Then a crash just ahead forced him to focus. Something clicked. The haze lifted. Soon, he was back in rhythm. One by one, he clawed his way forward. He was even overtaken by the driver Ferrari had hired to replace him. James Hunt had retired, another DNF. After a brutal comeback, Lauda finishes 4th. He doesn't win, but it feels like a victory. As he climbs from the car, the crowd rushes past the race winner. They're cheering for him, the man who came back from the dead. The title is almost his. But then Hunt wins back-to-back races, closing the gap. The championship now comes down to one final race, the Japanese Grand Prix at Fuji. Only 3 points separate them. Typhoon rains batter the island. Thick fog creeps over the mountains. Even Hunt, haunted by what happened in Germany, asks the officials to cancel the race. But the organizers refuse. Drivers drill holes into their visors to vent the fogged-up condensation. Before the start, beneath the looming shadow of Mount Fuji, James and Niki share a brief nod. Engines scream. The lights go out. The cars explode off the line. Hunt takes the early lead. Lauda falls in behind him, but with every lap, the spray from James's tires blinds him. He can barely see the road. He can barely breathe. And then he sees something else. Not the track, not the finish line. He sees Marlene's face. Niki slows down. At the end of the second lap, he pulls into the pit lane. His car is fine. He steps out, removes his helmet, and walks away. He's had enough. There's nothing left to prove, not at the cost of his life. Now, for Hunt to win the championship, he needs to finish at least 3rd. On lap 58, James is still in the lead, but the tires are shot. On lap 70, he dives into the pits. When he returns to the track, he's in 6th place. The title is slipping away. His mechanics advise caution, settle, survive. But settling isn't in James Hunt's blood. He pushes, one pass, then another. Lap by lap, now there's only one driver left between him and 3rd Regazzoni, and he takes him. James Hunt crosses the finish line in 3rd place by one single point. He becomes the Formula One world champion. Niki Lauda, watching from the sidelines, smiles. He tells Marlene he has no regret. Hunt basks in the fame. Advertisements, talk shows, magazine covers. The champagne flows freely. So do the women. Months later, the two rivals cross paths again in Italy. Lauda, now obsessed with flying planes, is still training, still disciplined. Hunt, ever the playboy, tells him he has no plans to prepare for next season. He just wants to enjoy himself. And that was always the difference between them. And James Hunt didn't care what people said, that he only won the championship because Lauda crashed. He believed he earned it because he risked everything. He put his life on the line, and that was enough. In time, both men came to the same conclusion. They had pushed each other to greatness. For Hunt, one title was enough. 2 years later, he walked away from racing. By the time they met again, 7 years after that fateful season, Lauda was champion once more. Hunt was a TV commentator, still wild, still charming, living every day like it was his last. And one day, it was. At just 45, James Hunt died of a heart attack. Lauda later said Hunt was one of the very few people he ever respected, and the only person he ever envied. And that's how the story ends.